Next, we want to talk about where in the country this is happening. The simple answer is everywhere. There are companies across the world that are taking it upon themselves to reduce their carbon emissions. According to Natural Capital Partners, 23% of the global Fortune 500 companies have climate-related goals. That 23% accounts for a total revenue of $8 trillion and 18 million employed people. Companies, including Trane Technologies, are going after similar emission reductions. However, to get the masses to adopt decarb and electrification, local, state, and federal policy of some kind will likely be needed to move the needle. And we already have cities and states that are moving in that direction. Here is a map showing cities across the US that have emission targets of either 80 or 100% emission reductions by 2030 to 2050. In fact, 18 of the top 20 most populated cities in the US have set some type of quantifiable emission reduction target. Obviously, some cities are moving faster than others, so the amount of pressure you're feeling to change your traditional HVAC designs will be different across the country. Cities and states are also taking very different approaches on reducing carbon emissions. Some cities are banning new natural gas hookups, like Berkeley in California. Others are providing incentives for all-electric designs and heat pump products. And still others, like New York City, have created a carbon emission cap that impacts large segments of the city. This cap in New York, known as Local Law 97, is one of the first large-scale emission programs in the US. Now, there is some potential this type of program gets copied in other cities, so we thought we'd take a minute to explain how the carbon cap is going to be applied. So first, you'll calculate your building's carbon cap, and this is done by multiplying the square footage of the building by the building type emission factor. That factor is laid out in the law for a handful of different building types. Next, you need to determine your building's emissions. This is done by multiplying your building's different energy consumers by emission factors. The law defines 5 different consumption types: electricity, natural gas, district steam, and number 2 and number 4 fuel oils. If your calculated building emissions are under your calculated cap, you're in compliance. If you're over the cap, the owner would be assessed a penalty of $268 per ton of CO2. The first year of penalties will be handed out in 2024, and the cap has the potential to ratchet down every 5 years until 2050. Now, this was a simplified explanation, and there are many caveats associated with the calculations, including renewable energy credits, distributed energy resources like energy storage, and greenhouse gas offsets. And this is just one example of a city pursuing carbon emissions. Every city and state will have its unique circumstances that will dictate how your specific projects will pursue carbon emission reductions, if at all.